Welcome back to Griffonomics, where we conduct financial investigations to define the risk before we look at the reward. Today, we're diving into the grand pivot of HIMS and HERS, ticker HIMS.
It is good to be back, and this is a perfect one for us. We're looking at a company that is, well, it's mid-metamorphosis.
That's a great way to put it. It's messy, it's ambitious, and as we'll see, it's very, very expensive.
It is.
I think we have to start with the elephant in the room, or maybe, the little blue pill in the room.
Right.
Because for, I'd say, 90% of people listening, if I say HIMS, they immediately think one thing.
Boner pills.
Mm,
Or maybe hair loss foam.
Exactly. The subway ads with the cactus, the uncomfortable conversations company, the place you go because you're, I don't know, a little too embarrassed to look your family doctor in the eye.
The telehealth access provider. That was the original model, right? Go to a website, fill out a form, some doctor you've never met reviews it, and a generic pill shows up in a plain box.
Fast, discreet, transactional, get in, get out.
But that's the whole point of this deep dive.
It is. Because when you look at the stack of documents from late 2025, the investor calls the roadmap for 2026, that whole reputation is becoming outdated and fast.
It's incredibly fast.
What we're seeing here is what management is actually calling the grand pivot. They're trying to turn this thing from, a simple prescription service
Into a vertically integrated, proactive health platform.
And that phrase is so important. A proactive health platform. That's a massive distinction.
It is, and that is the central tension we have to investigate today. It's the core investment conflict. Can this bet actually pay off?
Because it's a huge bet they're making.
It's a massive wager. They believe that by owning the physical infrastructure, and we're talking actual factories, with concrete and steel, and then layering AI-driven diagnostics on top, that they can democratize high-end longevity.
High-end longevity and concierge medicine for the mass market.
Exactly.
That's such a bold claim. Because concierge medicine, that's usually reserved for the 1%.
It's for the biohackers in Silicon Valley, the hedge fund guys. It's where your doctor knows your blood markers better than you do and tweaks everything just for you.
And HIMS thinks they can offer that for, what, $80 a month?
That's the bet. And the stakes are just incredibly high. The real question is, can they convince the average person to start treating their health like they treat, say, their dental hygiene?
Proactive instead of reactive.
Right. And maybe even more critically, can they navigate the absolute minefield of regulations around compounded drugs while they do it?
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we get into the sci-fi future of AI doctors and longevity,
We need to look at the numbers.
we have to look at the scoreboard. We have the Q3 2025 snapshot right here. And I have to say, when I first looked at these numbers, I got a little confused.
How so?
Well, let's start at the top line. Revenue for the third quarter of 2025 hit $599 million.
Which is a massive number.
It's huge. That's a 49% increase year over year. Almost 50% growth. For a company of this scale, that's not slowing down.
Not at all. It's actually accelerating. And you see that reflected in the subscriber count, too.
Yeah, they hit the 2.5 million mark.
2.5 million subscribers, up 21%.
Yeah.
But here's the metric that I think really tells the story.
The revenue per subscriber.
Exactly. That number's up 19%. It's at $80 a month now.
So it's not just that more people are coming through the door. The people who are already inside are spending more money. They aren't just buying, one cheap pill and then churning out.
They're engaging more deeply with the platform. It tells us they're buying more complex, more personalized treatments. It's becoming stickier.
But this is where my risk radar started flashing red. I'm looking at the bottom line. The GAAP net income.
Ah, yes.
In Q3 of 2024, they posted $76 million in income. Pretty good.
Very healthy.
Then Q3 2025, it drops off a cliff. $16 million.
It looks like a disaster.
It looks like a complete disaster. If you're just skimming the headlines, you're thinking, whoa, expenses are out of control, the margins are collapsing, the business is broken.
And this is why we do what we do, right? This is Griffonomics. We have to look past the headline.
So walk me through it. Because it looks like the sky is falling.
It does. But this is a classic case of, let's call it, accounting noise versus business reality. Their profit didn't just vanish into thin air.
So what's the noise?
The noise is that $76 million number from 2024. It was heavily inflated by a one-time tax benefit.
A tax benefit.
Yeah, about $61 million worth. It was basically an accounting credit from the government. It wasn't cash they earned from selling products.
So we were comparing a normal operational quarter in 2025 to a steroid-boosted quarter in 2024.
That's the perfect way to put it. It was like they won a tax lottery in 2024. So if you want to see the real underlying health of the business,
You have to look at adjusted EBITDA.
you have to look at adjusted EBITDA, the cash that the actual business machine is generating.
And that number.
That number actually grew 53%. It went up to $78 million. The margins are healthy. They're around 13%. So the operational engine is getting more profitable, not less.
So the narrative of a profit collapse is it's completely false.
Completely. And it seems like management knows it because they're putting their money where their mouth is.
The share repurchase program, I saw they authorized a new one, $250 million.
And that was right after they finished a previous $100 million buyback. That is a massive signal of confidence.
Usually a growth company isn't buying back stock, they're investing.
Exactly. When a company growing at nearly 50% starts buying back its own stock, they are screaming from the rooftops that they think it's undervalued.
They're flexing their financial muscle.
They are, and they can afford to. They're sitting on over $1 billion in cash and investments on the balance sheet. That is a war chest.
A war chest they are clearly planning to use.
Oh, absolutely. As we're about to see, they're using that cash to build a moat that's going to be very, very hard for competitors to cross.
Okay, let's talk about the biggest driver of that cash right now, the engine of this whole thing. We have to talk about the weight loss war.
You can't have a conversation about healthcare in 2025 or 2026 without talking about GLP-1s. It's the primary growth engine for HIMS.
The projections are just insane. What is it? Something like $725 million in revenue for 2025? Just from weight loss.
Just from weight loss. But this is also the area with the most regulatory noise, the most drama.
It's the Wild West. You've got the FDA making statements, big pharma lawsuits flying around, little compounding pharmacies popping up on every street corner.
And HIMS is right in the thick of it. But they have this very specific strategy they keep mentioning. They call it the hybrid model.
Right. Break that down for us. What are the two tracks of this hybrid approach?
So track one is compounding. This is what they've been doing for the last year or so. They take the active pharmaceutical ingredient semaglutide, and they use their own facilities to manufacture personalized dosages.
Okay, let's stop right there, because compounding can be a really dirty word for some investors and, frankly, for patients.
It's a fair concern.
You hear it all the time. Is it safe? Is it real medicine? Is it just, bathtub gin for weight loss?
It's a legitimate question because there have been some bad actors in the space. But HIMS knew this, so they decided to combat that stigma head-on with data.
The big white paper they released.
Exactly. A massive analysis of their own subscriber data. And the numbers, well, they're very difficult to argue with.
So what did they find?
They looked at thousands of their subscribers who were on these compounded GLP-1s. The average weight loss was 20.9 pounds over 6 months.
Wow. What is that as a percentage of body weight?
It's about 10.3%. So deeply in the range of what's considered clinically significant. It basically matches the results you see in the big clinical trials for the brand name drugs.
So it works, but do people stick with it? Adherence is always the big issue with weight loss.
And that, I think, was the most impressive number in the whole report. The adherence rate was 75%.
75? That's really high.
It's incredibly high. People usually quit these things if they feel terrible or it's not working. A 75% adherence rate suggests that the personalized nature of the treatment, tweaking the dosages to manage the side effects, is actually working better than the standard one-size-fits-all pens you get from the pharmacy.
And what about those side effects? Was that in the report?
It was remarkably low. Only about 10% of users reported any side effects, and less than 5% found them intolerable. So it really counters that narrative that compounded drugs are these dangerous, unregulated cocktails.
Okay, so track one, the compounding track, it's effective, it's sticky, and they control it. But track two is the real plot twist here.
Track two is the partnership. In late 2025, HIMS confirmed something huge. They are in active discussions with Novo Nordisk.
The makers of Wegovy and Ozempic, the kings of the castle, the very company that is supposedly suing every compounder in sight.
The very same. And this is a potential game changer. For a long time, the story was that HIMS was the enemy of Big Pharma. They were the disruptor undercutting the brand names.
Right.
This partnership discussion completely validates HIMS as a legitimate distributor. It means they could soon be offering name brand Wegovy, both the current injectables and the future oral pills, right on the same platform as their compounded options.
That's fascinating. It's like a car dealership saying, sure, we'll sell you the brand new Toyota right off the lot, but we also have a custom shop in the back if you want something tweaked just for you.
That's a great analogy. And it massively de-risks the business.
Yeah.
If the FDA suddenly cracks down on all compounding tomorrow,
They still have the brand name supply line from Novo.
and if the brand name has another one of its famous shortages, which happens constantly,
They have their own compound. It's redundancy. It makes the business so much more durable.
and it also gave them the confidence to start a price war. They just cut the prices on their GLP-1 plans by up to 20%.
That's a classic economies of scale play, right?
It is. Because they own their supply chain, their costs go down as they get bigger. So they can pass those savings on to the consumer to basically crowd out all the smaller competitors who don't have their own factories. They're making it impossible for the little guys to compete on price.
You keep saying own the supply chain, and I really want to pivot to that because I think it's the most overlooked part of this whole story.
I agree.
When I think of HIMS, I think of an app. A website with, nice beige colors and clean fonts. I do not think of hard hats and conveyor belts and loading docks.
Most people don't.
No.
But the reality is they are quietly becoming a manufacturing giant. This is the whole verticalization strategy. By the end of 2025, their operational footprint exceeded 1 million square feet.
1 million square feet. That is not a tech startup in a garage. That's Amazon-level infrastructure.
It's massive. And it includes a very specific type of facility that we need to define because it's so important. A 503B outsourcing facility.
Yeah, I saw that term everywhere in the reports. 503B. It sounds like a tax form or something. What is it, and why is it so important that they bought one?
It does sound dry, doesn't it? But this is really the crown jewel of their entire compounding strategy. It's all about quality and legitimacy. In the world of compounding, think of it like there are two tiers. You have your local 503A pharmacy. That's like a home kitchen. They make a meal specifically for you, right, when you order it, based on your doctor's prescription.
The mom-and-pop shop mixing a custom cream in the back room.
Yeah. Exactly. A 503B facility, on the other hand, is like an industrial food processing plant. It's a federal designation for an outsourcing facility. They can manufacture large batches of drugs in anticipation of need without specific patient prescriptions yet. But here's the kicker.
There's always a kicker.
They have to follow the FDA's current Good Manufacturing Practices, or CGMP.
Which means
the FDA inspects them with the exact same rigor they use for Pfizer or Merck. So by buying and operating a 503B facility, HIMS is signaling to the market, we are not mixing powders in a back room, we are manufacturing at a pharmaceutical grade.
it's their shield. It's their answer to the question, is this stuff safe?
It's a quality moat, and it's also a supply moat. They're very clear that they source their active ingredients, the APIs, solely from FDA-registered facilities. For the GLP-1s, they only use suppliers that are on the FDA's green list.
So by owning the factory, they control the quality and they ensure they never run out of supply.
And it massively helps the margins. The plan is that by the end of 2026, they'll be fulfilling the vast majority of their compounded GLP-1 orders internally. That protects their gross margins, which are already fantastic in the mid-70s, and it insulates them from all the supply chain shocks that plague the rest of the industry.
It turns a logistical nightmare into a real competitive advantage.
Precisely.
Okay, so they've got the cash, they've got the weight loss engine firing on all cylinders, they have the factories to back it all up. But the grand pivot we talked about at the top, it's not just about selling more weight loss drugs.
Not at all.
The 2026 roadmap points to something much, much bigger. They're using phrases like proactive care and longevity.
This is the real pivot. This is the shift from sick care to actual health care. The vision for 2026 is what they're calling the year of the consumer.
The goal is to stop treating problems after they happen.
And start preventing them before they begin.
Which sounds great. Every healthcare company says that. It feels a bit like marketing fluff. How do you actually do that for the average person?
It has to start with data. You can't fix what you don't measure. And that's why this new labs initiative is so critical. It's launching either late 2025 or very early 2026.
This is the at-home blood testing.
Correct. But they've tried to remove the biggest friction point, which is the scary needle in the arm. They acquired a company called Your BioHealth.
Right, I saw that. What's the tech there?
It's this microneedle technology. It's a small device you press against your upper arm, and it collects the blood sample pretty much painlessly.
So I get a kit in the mail, I stick this little device on my arm, no real pain, and I mail it back.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And the scope of what they're testing for is really comprehensive. We're talking cardiac risk markers, full hormone panels, metabolic health, and they even made an investment in a company called Grail.
Grail. They do the early cancer detection tests, right?
The multi-cancer early detection. So now we're talking about an app that used to sell hairspray, potentially being able to tell you that you have early-stage cancer, maybe before you even have symptoms.
That is a whole new world. That's heavy.
It is. But that brings up the next logical question.
Yeah.
Once you have all this data, what do you do with it?
Right. It's one thing to know your cardiac risk is high. It's another thing to fix it.
And that's where the new longevity specialty comes in, which is launching in 2026. And this is where the conversation turns to things like peptides.
Okay, that word peptides is everywhere now. I see it on social media. You hear biohackers talking about it. From a medical standpoint, what are we actually talking about here? Is this just a fancy multivitamin?
No, not at all. And this is where the science gets really interesting. Think of your body as a big construction site. Hormones, like testosterone or estrogen, they're like the foreman on the site, shouting broad instructions.
Okay, like build more muscle or store more fat.
Exactly. Broad strokes. Peptides are the specific work orders given to a specific crew. They're very short chains of amino acids that signal cells to do very, very specific tasks.
So much more targeted than a hormone.
Much more. Things like repair this specific tear in this muscle tissue or reduce inflammation in this joint right here. Historically, they've been incredibly expensive and hard to make.
And HIMS is betting they can change that.
That's the whole thesis. They're using their factories, specifically that new peptide manufacturing facility they bought in California, to compound these peptides at scale.
To bring the price down from thousands of dollars a month?
To something that a middle-class consumer can just add to their monthly subscription box. It's the idea of subscribing to your health span.
That's a powerful concept, and it totally changes their addressable market.
Massively. You only need ED medication if you have ED. But literally everyone wants to live a longer, healthier life. It moves them from a niche problem solver to a general wellness utility.
Now, while HIMS is off chasing longevity, we can't forget about hers, because the hers side of the business is, it's just exploding. It almost feels like a secret superstar within the company.
It's a quiet giant. Hers is on a trajectory to generate $1 billion in revenue on its own in 2026.
$1 billion? That's a unicorn company living inside another company.
It is, and the growth is coming from the exact same playbook. Find a massive, underserved, often stigmatized market. In this case, menopause and perimenopause.
I was reading that something like 1.3 million women enter menopause every year, but very few doctors actually get significant training in how to treat it.
It's a huge gap in the medical system. You have millions of women dealing with treatable symptoms, hot flashes, mood changes, sleep disruption, and their doctors just tell them, oh, it's just a part of aging.
And hers is stepping into that void to say, no, we can actually help.
Exactly. With specialized telehealth care, hormone replacement therapies, online support systems, they are removing the friction from a problem that the traditional system has largely ignored.
And they're doing the exact same thing on the men's side with testosterone.
Low T. It's another massive underserved market. You're talking about maybe 20 million men in the U.S. with clinically low testosterone. But the treatments have always been a hassle.
Right. Messy creams that can rub off on your family or painful injections you have to give yourself.
Nobody wants to do that. So HIMS partnered with a pharma company called Marius Pharmaceuticals. They're launching a drug called KYZ-Atrex in 2026.
What's special about it?
It's an FDA-approved oral testosterone, a pill.
A pill. No needles, no creams.
No needles. This basically completes the ecosystem for men's health. They now have a solution for ED, for hair loss, for weight loss, and now for hormones. It's a comprehensive platform.
And they're not content to just keep this platform in the U.S. They're going on a bit of a global conquest.
An aggressive one. Their M&A strategy abroad has been very active. They bought a European telehealth company called Zazia.
And that gets them into
the UK, Germany, France, and Ireland. Instantly. That's a market of 200 million adults.
And then they bought Livewell to get into Canada.
Correct. And the strategy there is really interesting. They're already negotiating to offer generic semaglutide in Canada as soon as it becomes available there in 2026. So they are planting flags in all the major Western markets, ready to deploy their playbook.
Okay, so we have this picture of a company that is growing like a weed. It's profitable on an EBITDA basis. It's vertically integrated, and it's expanding globally into huge new markets. But they are not the only game in town.
Not by a long shot.
We have to talk about the competition. Specifically, this fascinating philosophical battle that's brewing between Andrew Dudum, the CEO of HIMS, and Mark Cuban of Cost Plus Drugs.
This is my favorite part of the whole industry dynamic right now because it's a pure clash of ideologies.
Lay it out for us. What's the Cuban model?
Mark Cuban's model views healthcare as a commodity. It's a utility. His argument is brilliantly simple. Drugs are expensive because of middlemen and opaque pricing. So I am going to sell you that drug for exactly what it cost me to make it, plus a flat 15% margin, plus $5 for shipping.
Total transparency. The lowest possible price. No frills.
Exactly. He has publicly argued that HIMS is just a marketing company that slaps a huge markup on a generic drug and puts it in a fancy box.
Which, to be fair, is kind of how HIMS started out.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But Dudum's model, the platform model, has evolved into something fundamentally different. He believes the problem in healthcare isn't just price, it's an experience problem.
He's betting people will pay a premium for convenience.
For convenience, for speed, for 247 access to a clinician, and most importantly, for personalization.
It's the difference between Walmart and Netflix.
That is the perfect analogy. Mark Cuban's Cost Plus Drugs is Walmart. You go there because it's the cheapest place to buy the thing you already know you need.
I need generic Lipitor. I go there, I get the lowest price.
Right. HIMS is trying to be Netflix. You go there not just for one thing, but for the curated experience. It knows your history, it suggests things you might need, it's always on, and it's incredibly convenient.
And this is where the AI comes back in, the MedMatch technology they talk about.
This is the key differentiator. This is Dudum's bet. Mark Cuban can sell you a generic semaglutide pill, but he can't look at the data from 2.5 million other users and tell the doctor, hey, for this specific patient profile, the standard 1 milligram dose causes too much nausea. You should start them on a 0.4 milligram microdose, and we can compound that specifically for them.
That's the concierge part we talked about. You can't get that from a standard pharmacy.
You can't. HIMS is betting that you don't just want the pill, you want the outcome. You want to lose the weight, but you want the journey to be as smooth as possible. If MedMatch can actually improve clinical outcomes and reduce side effects, then HIMS has a moat that low prices alone can't breach.
It is a very compelling argument, but let's play devil's advocate here. This is Griffonomics. We have to define the risk.
Of course.
It all sounds pretty rosy factories, AI, global domination. What could go wrong here? What keeps their management team up at night?
Plenty. I think the biggest and most obvious risk is regulatory.
The FDA.
The FDA holds a tremendous amount of power over their core growth engine. That whole track one we talked about, the compounding of GLP-1s, is currently allowed because the brand name drugs, Wegovy and Ozempic, are on the official FDA drug shortage list.
And if that shortage ends?
If the FDA one day declares that shortage is over, the legal window that allows for widespread compounding of semaglutide could slam shut almost overnight.
And that would crush the high-margin engine they've built to fund everything else.
It would hurt badly. Now, they've hedged this with a Novo Nordisk partnership. That's track two. But if that transition doesn't happen smoothly, or if the FDA decides to crack down on compounding for other reasons, it's a serious threat. They're operating in a regulatory gray area, and those rules can change.
What about the financial risks? We saw that gap net income dip. Is there a risk that their margins get squeezed too much?
There's definite short-term pressure. It is expensive to move all your fulfillment in-house. It is expensive to build and buy factories. And on top of that, they just voluntarily cut their prices by 20% to gain market share.
So costs are going up and prices are going down at the same time.
For a short period, yes. So we might see Q4 of 2025 and maybe the first half of 2026 show some margin compression. They are betting that the explosion in volume will more than make up for it. But if that growth were to slow down for some reason, they'd be left with very expensive factories and lower margins. It's a high wire act.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize all of this. The grand pivot, when you boil it all down, is really about owning the entire customer relationship from start to finish.
From the moment you feel sick, or even before you feel sick, when you just decide you want to live a longer, healthier life.
HIMS wants to be the first app you open.
And they want to own the factory that makes the solution that app prescribes. It's the ultimate combination of vertical integration and consumer obsession.
And despite all the risks we just outlined, management is holding firm to a truly massive long-term target.
An audacious target. They're publicly guiding for $6.5 billion in revenue and $1.3 billion in EBITDA by the year 2030.
That is, what, more than a tenfold increase in revenue from just a few years ago?
It shows you the scale of their ambition. They are not trying to build a nice little telehealth company.
Mm-hmm.
They are swinging for the fences. They're trying to become a next-generation healthcare giant.
Well, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground here, from accounting nuances to peptide manufacturing. Before we sign off, what is the one provocative thought you want to leave our listeners with?
I want to leave you with a question about the broader societal implications of all this.
Mm.
Let's just assume for a minute that HIMS and HERS succeeds beyond their wildest dreams.
Okay.
If they truly make longevity a mass market product, if they are selling cancer screenings and life-extending peptides with the same ease that they sell shampoo today, what does that do to the rest of our healthcare system?
How do you mean?
Does it create a competitive pressure that forces the traditional slow-moving insurance-based system to finally change and catch up? Or, and this is the more troubling thought, does it create a permanent two-tier system?
A system where your health span, how long you live a healthy life, becomes a subscription service.
Exactly. A service that you have to pay for out of pocket,
Mm-hmm.
while everyone who can't afford it is left behind in the old reactive sick care system.
That is a terrifying thought. The idea that basic health and longevity becomes a consumer product you subscribe to, like Netflix or Spotify.
If your health becomes a direct-to-consumer product,
Yeah.
the gap between the haves and the have-nots doesn't just stay financial. It becomes biological.
That is a heavy thought to chew on. We'll have to see if HIMS ends up building a healthcare utopia or a dystopia.
We will indeed.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you on the next investigation.